The Springboks are the 2023 Rugby World Cup champions, and in this video we're going to be giving our team of the tournament for each of the positions. There were key players for the Springboks, and we're going to let you know exactly who were the star performers in each position, as well as some stats about each of the players as well. But starting in the front row, there is only one man I feel who can take that number one spot, and that has to be Oxnard. The amount of impact that he was able to bring off the bench, I feel like Steven Kitshoff by no means had a bad tournament. He was very solid, but the impact from the Ox seemed to be the game changer in a couple of the matches. In particular, their game up against the English, when he made his way off the bench, they started winning the penalties, and it certainly helped them get over the line in the semi-final. I should mention Steven Kitshoff still making 48 tackles throughout this Rugby World Cup in the starting lineup a majority of the time, but Oxnard, the one who I would say was just that a little bit more impactful, looking at two. Now, at the start of the Rugby World Cup, there was a certain player that I predicted to get player of the tournament. That was Malcolm Marx. That didn't quite work out. He did end up injured extremely early, and that left a massive hole and a lot of uncertainty in terms of how the Springboks would go in that number 2 jersey. And Bongi Mbonambi, Dion Fourie, Maka van Staden, they were the three that were expected to find their inner Malcolm Marx, take it to that next level. And to be honest, I feel like Dion Fourie and Mbonambi, in the scenario they were put in, they did go pretty decently. Of course, the lineouts were nowhere near as accurate as when Malcolm Marx was in the side, but I have said that Bongi Mbonambi was the stronger of the two. Dion Fourie, when it came to the breakdown, I feel was a lot better than Mbonambi throughout this Rugby World Cup. I can't think of too many occasions where Mbonambi actually got turnovers, but for his line-out throwing, Mbonambi, and also his tackling, made 37 tackles throughout the Rugby World Cup competition. I have opted to go with him as the number 2 in this team of the tournament. Number 3, there's no real question marks here. Frans Malherbe, 48 tackles. The man is a beast, and this wasn't even his best tournament. Honestly, he started a little bit shaky, but even though he wasn't playing so well when it came to those scrums, he was still able to make a huge amount of tackles, having 100% tackle accuracy up until about the 5th game that he played in, which is pretty incredible for a prop, getting to the breakdowns that he needed to. So Frans Malherbe, the tight head prop that I would give that position in the team of the tournament. Moving on to the locks. Number 4, Eben Etzebeth, a nominee for Player of the Year. Did narrowly miss out to Ardie Savia, but Etzebeth is just a beast when he's out there on the field. They had Jean Klein. Didn't get a huge amount of game time from Klein, mainly in those games up against the lower ranked sides. But in the big games when Eben Etzebeth was needed, he was able to step up. 52 tackles throughout the Rugby World Cup. You'll notice quite a few of these players, the only real stat that we've got to base them off is, of course, their tackling. And then also from watching them, we got to see what else they were doing out there on the field. Relatively good when it came to the lineouts, although the man at number 5, I think, had that little bit of an edge over him, that being Franco Mostert, mainly for his lineout steals. Now, he made 73 tackles throughout this Rugby World Cup. The man's an absolute workhorse. A majority of the time, he would just put everything into his performance for the first 40 minutes, and then they were going to sub him around that 50-minute mark. They didn't have a bad option to bring on RG Snyman. He is also an honourable mention here. He actually had 6 offloads throughout this Rugby World Cup competition, but Franco Mostert, I feel he was one of the players that helped the foundation of the Springboks side. Line-out times, of course, extremely important, and the fact that he was able to get a few from the other side helped the Springboks in possession in the loose forward trio. Number 6, to have a team of the tournament and not have the captain who lifted their Rugby World Cup trophy, and it would feel like a bit of an insult. So Siya Kolisi, he is the 6th that I have gone with. He had a decent tournament overall, having a couple games where he stood out, and then other games just getting his work done, doing what he needed to. I'll be honest, the World Cup final, I feel like, was one of his worst performances that he has had. Definitely that second half. Blew an opportunity to score a try, got himself yellow carded, got himself penalised, but he still, even after that, was showing that leadership, trying to help his side get over the line in the important games. We've got to remember the Springboks, 3 games in a row. The quarters, the semi, and the final all split by 1 point. Now, that can take a huge mental toll on a team, but Siya Kolisi still in high hopes. In the tunnel, when there was silence for the World Cup final, that man was singing his songs, and he was looking focused, ready to help his side win yet again another final. Number 7, a man who also helped his side win the final. This man was incredible in the game up against New Zealand. 28 tackles made. That is more than some of the Springboks made throughout their whole Rugby World Cup campaign. Peter Steph-Toy, an absolute beast out there on the field. They weren't just tackles though, they were big hits, putting the All Blacks on the back foot. Throughout the Rugby World Cup competition, he made 66, actually making almost half of his tackles in the one game. But this is the game that everyone remembers, and Peter Steph-Toy, brilliant work from him. Throughout 3 clean breaks throughout the Rugby World Cup as well, having 33 runs total for this competition. So he gets his hands on the ball and he likes to try and get those extra meters, and with the physicality that he brings, you can understand why he's able to do so. Number 8. This was actually a little bit of a tricky one because, to be honest, Jesper Wiese, I don't think really did too badly throughout this Rugby World Cup competition. In fact, he actually found his form that he was lacking before the Rugby World Cup. But with that experience and with the amount of game time that they gave him, I did go with Duane Vermeulen as my team of the tournament. Number 8, mainly because of the 31 runs that we did see from him. I'll be honest, this was probably out of everyone in the 4-pack, the most likely position that I could have gone the other way. I feel like it was probably about a 60-40 split in favour of Vermeulen, and in fact some people may even say Jesper Wiese had the better tournament. But now we move on to the back line. Number 9, I've actually gone Kobus Reinach here. He did get himself a hat-trick in this Rugby World Cup. It was up against Romania, but with the attack that he was offering and a few of the other games as well, scored 4 tries in total compared to Faf de Klerk, who didn't really score too many, but Faf de Klerk's impact at times was a lot more evident compared to Kobus Reinach. He also had 3 clean breaks, Kobus Reinach, so that is why I've gone with him as that number 9. Number 10, I have said Handré Pollard in the team of the tournament. Now that sounds very harsh on Manie Libbok, because when you look at the amount of try assists that Manie Libbok has had throughout this Rugby World Cup, it is massive. He's a game-changing player. He's one of those guys that you give him a couple more years, he is going to be at the top of his game and is going to be extremely hard to stop for any other side that go head-to-head with him. But Handré Pollard, after the injury that we saw in Malcolm Marx, being brought back into the side. Now we have to remember, Handré Pollard has only had 4 games. He had the game up against Tonga. He also had the quarterfinals, the semi-final, and the final, where he did actually start up against the All Blacks. But his kicking game, the accuracy that he was able to offer, and actually in that All Blacks game, we saw him having a few runs, which is something we don't normally get to see from Handré Pollard. So perhaps that combination of Pollard and Libbok is actually going to help both of the players. Libbok will get help with his kicking. Handré Pollard might get a little bit of help from Manie Libbok in terms of his attacking play. We actually saw that Handré Pollard cross kick to Cheslin Kolbe in the semi-final up against the English. But yeah, Handré Pollard, he had 33 points that he scored throughout this Rugby World Cup. And when you consider their last 3 games were split by only 1 point, those extra ones were very crucial. Now moving on to the centres, number 12, I've gone with Damien de Allende. He had 33 runs throughout this Rugby World Cup competition. He's a tackling machine, and also just the way he's able to get the momentum going forward for the Springboks is extremely impressive. It was a shame that we didn't really get to see him running the ball up against the English, as I feel he was probably a player that could have cut that game wide open, but he's still been a very solid option for them throughout this Rugby World Cup. Andre Esterhuizen, unfortunately just not quite his time to be in the spotlight yet, but I'd say give it a few years and he will be right there in that inside centre jersey. Number 13, another youngster who didn't get much of a chance throughout this Rugby World Cup was Keenan Moody. He wasn't given the chance in the playoff games. That is because they had Jesse Kriel, a player who some people were questioning whether or not he would be the right man for the job at the start of this Rugby World Cup. I think he proved a lot of people wrong. He was very good working in tandem with Damien de Allende. The pace that he's able to show is extremely impressive. Now, I should mention Keenan Moody actually having 3 clean breaks throughout this Rugby World Cup competition. He had some very good moments, but I think Kriel overall had the better tournament. Now, that may be because we saw Kriel a little bit more, but also I think that try that he scored in the earlier fixtures just gave him that little bit of an edge. Out on the left wing, there's no real challenge here. Cheslin Kolbe, 2 try score for this Rugby World Cup. He had 7 clean breaks, and he was just a menace out there on the wing. He was the type of player you didn't want to have to try and mark, because you knew if he got that step right, he was getting past you every day of the week. But Cheslin Kolbe showing that he's still got it. 11 seems to be a spot that they could look at for him in the future, if it means that they do want to have Kutli Arendse out on the right wing, who is actually who I've gone with for that number 14. He also had 2 tries. He got 5 clean breaks throughout this Rugby World Cup competition. And of course, one of the best tries of the comp from the Springboks, where Mani Libok did that no-look cross kick straight into the hands of Aransa, who was able to seal the deal. That leaves us with one position in this Springboks team of the tournament, and that is fullback. Now, one man had a lot more time in that number 15 jersey, and that is who I've gone with. Damian Valimza, 52 runs throughout this Rugby World Cup competition. He made a lot of crucial tackles, and also alongside that, his defense was impeccable at times throughout this World Cup competition. When you look at the world-class players that were on attack against Damian Valimza, and the fact that Damian Valimza was able to handle a lot of that pressure, his positioning was very strong, getting into the right place at the right time for those marks, and also to be able to create that counter-attack. So Damian Valimza, that is who I'll go with for number 15 in the Springboks team of the tournament. But do let me know, ladies and gentlemen, who would you have in your Springboks team of the tournament? Now, I do have to say the disclaimer, just in case anyone's confused, this is not the overall team of the tournament. I haven't gone with 15 Springboks in the overall team of the tournament. I think that would make quite a few people angry. Probably not many Springbok supporters, because at the end of the day, they are the world champions, and they were able to play a very good tournament. So do let me know who you would switch in, who you would switch out. I think for me, that one that I was most on the fence about was Dwayne Vermeulen or Jasper Wiese, but then also Faf de Klerk, probably worth a mention at number 9, definitely for what he was able to do in the crucial matches of the Rugby World Cup compared to Reinach. Got a few earlier opportunities, but I've said it multiple times, it has been an absolutely awesome World Cup to be able to cover on the channel. We didn't cover the 2019 one as we started up doing rugby commentary and also rugby videos just afterwards, but it has been greatly appreciated. The amount of support we've had from people all around the world. We've got the URC coming up, the Six Nations, the Sevens, Super Rugby, you name it, we're covering it. So if you are new, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel as well. And I will see you all for the next one.